Okay. Vibey. Heck yeah, dude. That's what it's all about. Okay. Let's see if I can do this without killing everything. Oh no. I forgot. Hello. There we go. I forgot the BGM. Oh no, now there's two of them. There we go. Welcome, Ootori, to the first actual stream after the debut. I am Ootori Kagerou, if it wasn't already obvious enough, and welcome to the very first Music Monday. This is going to be a bit of an experiment, more or less, for all of us. So you guys are going to be my guinea pigs here. Because today, we're going to try a number of things. Number one, we're going to look at copyrighted material. But hopefully, we can go ahead and argue that since it's not just me, you know, playing the song, it's, you know, not actually that copyrighted. And the other thing that we're going to test is how well we can put all of this together. I was seriously debating just releasing a lot of these as like videos rather than actual streams, which I still might do. It more or less depends. But nonetheless, welcome. Today we will be looking at the first opening of the anime Spice and Wolf, Tabi no Tochuu, which is one of my favorite songs like ever across a lot of anime. Oh man. If you have not seen Spice and Wolf, you definitely owe it to yourself to do so. I don't think there's really many ways to watch it legally, but you can always buy it. I'm sure you can find a seller somewhere. And honestly, it's like one of the most perfect anime ever, especially if you like politics, economics, and a lot of very realistic slice of life for a medieval era. Also a good amount of mysticism and government stuff. Man, I'm excellent at talking today. But Tabi no Tochuu, or the middle of our journey, tells more or less the story of you're gonna read the light novel, also a high recommendation. I haven't had a chance to do so myself, but it is fantastic. Like, if the anime is anything to go off of, absolutely fantastic. Holo is an excellent heroine, and the main character, whose name I kind of forgot, he's just as excellent. Seriously, it's a great story. But Tabi no Tochuu really slams it home as far as a lot of anime OPs go. It really sets the stage for a good anime. I always judge an anime partially by its OP and ED to sort of basically tell me what I'm getting into. And by and large, a lot of anime, even mediocre anime, does a pretty good job of this. But there are definitely issues when I feel like there's like a mix between what the OP does. Is the delay on your side? I'm not too sure. I don't have a delay set, but I mean, I'm sure there is one. Either way. Oh god, I kind of lost my train of thought here. Oh yeah. So, Tabi no Tochuu has this very emotional yet upbeat manner of portraying itself. And I'll go ahead and talk about all of that stuff. But before we get there, there are a few things that we should cover before we start talking about the songs. And that pun was not necessarily intentional. So I decided that we're going to have a little bit of an education, or educational moment at least. And what I mean by that is I'm going to probably use a few words and phrases that aren't really used outside of the music world. And so I'd like to teach them to you so that, you know, whenever I say these things, you more or less know what I'm talking about. So the first one is voice or voicing. Now, of course, when we're talking about voices, usually people are talking about the human voice. Oh, what's up, Iman? And this is not a bad thing to think about, but in the world of music, voicing is just a sound. You know, a piano's voicing in the key of A major would be something like that. You know, it's the voices that it makes. Yada, yada, yada. I won't go into the history of how that came to be the official wording for it, but generally when I refer to voicing, it's in reference to just the sound that an instrument makes. So just a heads up on that. So the second thing I want to talk about, and there are 3 in total, is the melody. You've probably heard this one before. This isn't like the world's most complicated musical phrase, but just in case, so we cover our bases. The melody is more or less the main part of a piece, and the soloist or singer does not always have the melody. There are plenty of songs, especially songs with multiple singers or even just longer songs. The melody can go between the soloist and, well, the performers in the orchestra or anything like that. Kagerou opens my eyes on the musical world. Hey, I've been around a long time, and it's kind of my job to make sure all of you know what you're talking about. I've been through the American education system before. I know what I'm missing. And kind of going back to melody, there's also harmony, which I'll sort of touch on, but it's not really a bullet point here. The most important one that I wanted to talk about, though, are the big 3 rules of music. Now, a lot of people like to pretend that these rules don't exist, and they're wrong. They just may or may not know it. And that's not even really me trying to be like, oh, my opinions are right. They are, but that's not really the point here. You see, I've come to find that... Hello, October. I've come to find that artists... Actually, it's kind of funny that October Lights shows up right here. Artists, more or less, the more into an art you are, the more extremely specific everything becomes. For example, a painter, you might think that they'll have like a canvas and a palette of paints, but the reality is they probably have several rooms devoted to extremely specific ways and techniques and tons of books and research. There's a definitive way to do something correctly. Even if it's a creative art, yeah, there is creativity involved in it, but 9 times out of 10, there's some kind of formula to it. And music is probably the most formulaic of any kind of artwork other than cooking. Seriously, I hate to burst your bubble. 90% of music is just math. And if you're bad at math, well, that's okay, because you'll do it by accident. So the big rules of music are repetition, contrast, and variation. The first 2 are the most important, and the third one kind of happens by accident. And what that means is that you'll have a lot of songs repeat themselves. Like, how many songs on the radio have you heard have a chord progression that's something like... it's the 1, the 4, sometimes they'll go... Cooking is not formulaic at all. Yes, it is. If you follow the instructions, you're following a formula. I mean, that's kind of how it works. Now, you don't have to follow the formula, but most people would. The instructions are there. You put 2 grams of this or 1 liter of that, so on and so forth. There are definitive mathematic ways to create the same thing. You don't have to do it, but I mean, if you're just trying to make some scrambled eggs, my man, you don't gotta go crazy with it, right? I mean, if you follow the instructions, you'll get the same thing every time, and music works exactly the same way. Maybe cooking wasn't the number 1 best example, but that's the first one I thought of. But either way, baking, whatever, okay? It's food. You create food, all right? None of that stuff matters to me. Go away. Yeah. Okay, sorry. So, right. Repetition is very important in music, and you'll hear it everywhere. Even the very structure of how a lot of songs go in the modern era you've got the intro, then you got the verse, then you got the chorus, then you got another verse, another chorus, usually a bridge, a last chorus, and that's the whole song. And you can more or less describe every song this way. Actually, if I pull out the guitar, I can actually prove this really, really easily, but maybe we'll do that later. Contrast, on the other hand, is what keeps you from getting bored of it. And to a lesser extent, variation does this as well. But contrast is basically what breaks up the repetition. So in the earlier example, I said verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. But see, we have contrast. The verses are contrasted by the chorus. Even though they might be the same chords, they're going to be played in a different way. There's going to be different lyrics, yada, yada, yada. They contrast each other. And then variation, again, you know, the first verse and the second verse may have the same music to it, but they're going to have different lyrics. So, variation. Regardless, this has been the standard for how music works for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Anybody that tells you that these rules don't exist is just lying. Even people who have never had formal music training will accidentally follow these rules. It's just things that happen. You know, you don't have to believe in gravity, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So these are the big things that I wanted to talk about for this Music Monday. And I think that keeping these in mind will help you, well, rather, will help me help you understand kind of what we're going for. So I'll go ahead and move these away. Actually, maybe I should keep them up. Okay. And then I'll cut the BGM. Bah. Okay. So, Tabi no Tochuu is in the key of D flat minor. And I'm not going to draw a picture of what that looks like because it'll just make things really, really confusing. But more or less, we have... That's the scale. You're going to hear all of those notes in one way or another. And this song is quite brilliantly composed. There's a lot of accidentals, or things that slightly alter the music in order to give it a lot more flavor. In fact, the song gets pretty jazzy partway through. Actually, it kind of gets jazzy almost immediately, but for now, we're going to look at the TV size, which is the actual opening from the anime. And the difference between the TV size and the full version is that the TV size is more or less the gist of the song. However, a lot of composers will very purposefully cut up the TV size in such a way to sort of give it a different context. So we're going to start with the TV size, and we'll kind of talk through little bits here and there. And after that, we'll go into the full song, talk about bits here and there, and hope that I don't take all 2 hours. So, let us begin with Tabi no Tochuu. Okay, we're already going to pause it 8 seconds in. So we have... whoops. In the melody there. Now what's interesting about this is that even though we're supposed to be in the D flat minor key, we start off in major. And the reason that the artist or the composer does this is to kind of give this initial sense of perhaps blossoming hope, you know? This is a very common resolution in classical music. You know, you'll hear things like and so on. So having this oops. Sorry, didn't mean to play it so fast. Really gives that, you know, initial sense of relief perhaps, but then immediately the phrase repeats, but it's varied. Because the third here is lowered by a half step. Oops. Whoops. And this is a false resolution, even though it's the exact same thing. And because it repeats, we already know that this phrase is important. So we have... And this sort of... I don't know, to me, it really opens up this feeling of like, oh, this resolution isn't real. It's kind of a lie. And that matches up quite well with the text. I'm going to be using the Lee and Lee transliteration, so it's not word for word translated, but I was once alone, no place to call home. And I think that's like pretty powerful, considering both the musical connotations mixed with the words. And already, and if you watch the anime itself, it opens up with Holo in this huge field of snow by herself. And I really, really like how it just starts you off with that voice. The full song is a little different, and it does start quite a bit differently. But either way, I really, really like that contrast and variation. And then the final phrase of this, or the final line of this whole phrase is... This is another quote-unquote nice resolution, but where everything else went upwards, this one goes down. So the whole phrase would sound like... acceptance, you know? This kind of, it is what it is. So we'll go ahead and hear it again.
ただ一人迷い込む旅の中で
And then, so now that we have this initial picture, also something to point out is that below the melody is just a piano and a bass. This song includes a lot of instruments. It's a huge symphony, but I quite like the openness of the harmonies here. So then we move on to the second part of the verse, which repeats mostly.
心だけさまよって立ち尽くした
It's different this time. So we have... Once again, this third line is a normal resolution, but whereas before it went down, now we're going back up. And this is a major fourth, a perfect fourth. And this is best known for, you know, the wedding. Yada yada. But that's very commonly like a very triumphant thing to do. So if Holo has originally accepted her loneliness, well, now suddenly something has caused her to think a little differently. And it's the picture that we're painting here already 17 seconds in. Has really foreshadowed a lot of the story. Man, it's just God. Hello, Mio. I hope your stream is going quite well. Where was I? Oh yeah. So we've gone down, we've gone up, but we've more or less done the same things. Now the next part of this verse, actually the second half of the first verse, changes the melody quite a bit, and it really helps to lock in the time signature we're in, which is 6/8, which is quite different from 3/4, but we'll get into that later. This song has a very dance-like rhythm. 6/8 is quite commonly used in dances like waltzes and other very ballroom styles. So I'll go ahead and play what the next phrase will be. Bye-bye, Miu. So then when we listen to it, you can kind of get what's going on. Or, sorry. I'll play that again. Ba 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 ba. And at the same time, when this happens, the percussion of the orchestra, as it would, also comes in. It's a standard drum kit, and it's also playing in 6/8, but it too has a very open sound, and you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a second. Let me back up a few seconds. Oh, sorry. It's the verse again. Okay. But here we have a guitar and the percussion. And here comes the next part. Oh man. So not only do we have a guitar, the percussion, but then we have additional voices come in. And the strings as well. So slowly we're building up to something. And in following with the theme originally given from the beginning of the song, where once we were all alone, more and more members of the orchestra start to join in as Holo starts to find her place in the world and also by the side of the main character. So the song, once again, is starting to paint this picture of a journey starting from nothing and moving into something as it builds and builds and builds this huge wall of sound. I can't believe I forgot that there was another part. So we'll go ahead and back up a few seconds. And this part is different. Just as was the case with all of the other repetitions, the second time it repeats, it's different. So here we had... And this is something that's pretty common in a lot of anime music. You'll hear these half steps, and even though it's a large jump, you can kind of get the idea of somebody like reaching out for something. You know, your hand just suddenly shoots out. I'm making a hand motion, but I guess you can't see it. And kind of grabs onto something. So this, you know, and it lingers there as the rest of the music builds up to the proper chorus. And the chorus is where things really, really get interesting, because we keep this waltz-like rhythm, but it almost seems to slow down. I always like to use the imagery of like a wheel turning. You know, if you've ever seen like a big heavy vehicle, if it's not a perfect circle, the wheel kind of like struggles to move and then it turns. The chorus has this line of... Oops. That's not quite right, but it's close. It sort of moves in this ba da 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 la da 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 la da da da. It kind of lingers in that way with the voice, but below the orchestra is constantly moving. You can hear the percussion go 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. The music really drives itself. And the imagery in the anime, at least, has this wide zoom shot of Holo and the main character sitting on a cart as it goes across this large plain and this gorgeous scape of countryside. And I think that really, you know, that again, the openness of the song, even though there's a ton of instruments more or less playing the same notes, and the percussion really moving along at the same beat, you get this feeling of this wide open field. And I really, really like the way that the melody moves. Ba da 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 la da da da. You can almost imagine kind of like skipping through a field, you know, with all the space that the voices give. So we'll go ahead and back up a little bit and we'll listen to it.
ただ君といると夢見た世界がどこかにあるなら探しに行こうが風の向こうへ凍てつく夜
Once again, it repeats.
乾いた真昼の震える闇夜の果てを見に行こう
And that's the end of the TV size of the OP. That's where it drops off, and then the episode formally starts. And man, having it suddenly just drop like that, synced up with the animation where Holo suddenly wakes up and she's back in the field of snow, is fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. Because we spent all this time, literally a minute and 30 seconds, building up to this idea of you know, going on a journey, and then bam, it's over. Like, wow. But I hope that imagery, you know, really carries or translates rather, because we see a bunch of repetition. I mean, every verse and every line in each verse repeats at least twice. It contrasts with itself and varies on itself as it gets more and more complex. And that's not even counting the fact that pretty much every 4 beats, a different set of instruments comes in. And that's really why I was super sold on the series by the OP alone, because it seriously just tells this gorgeous story without you really needing to watch this series or read it at all, because it you know, again, it creates this wall of storytelling that I'm a big fan of. What are we at? 30 minutes? So, okay. We'll go ahead and back up a little bit on the TV size here. Man, you guys are like super quiet. Yeah, more or less, it's just this like incredible idea of going on a journey, and the full version of the song starts off a bit differently. You might have heard that there were 2 singers there in the chorus. The song is technically a duet, though the male voice only shows up in the chorus and also in the bridge. And in the full version of the song, he's there at the very, very beginning, but otherwise he's not. And I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the differences between the main song and the TV size. The biggest, of course, is that the song is nearly 3 times its length, but also there's a bit at the beginning. It doesn't just start out with the woman's voice. Instead, they do this kind of chant-like thing. Now, Spice and Wolf takes place in the medieval era, where the church has a very prominent place in society. The light novel and the uncensored version of the anime calls it the Catholic Church. Like, no BS. It's actually the Catholic Church, complete with all the iconography you can imagine. I'm just enjoying my voice. Oh, stop it. But, you know, back in those days, the church did have a huge dominance over culture, which is why a lot of music was made in churches first, or made at least around churches. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the song Greensleeves, also known as What Child Is This? They are both the exact same song, just with different text. To denote a religious or non-religious context. And this was very, very common in the medieval era, because songs that were popular were obviously things that people wanted to listen to. I mean, it's not really much different from today, where when you listen to a song enough, YouTube or Spotify or whatever you use to listen to music is going to recommend similar things. And it was just like that in the olden days, except instead of trying to make copy somebody's homework, you would actually just copy everything and then just, switch around the lyrics to either praise the Lord or not praise the Lord. Which is pretty annoying for a lot of music historians because there's a lot of controversy as to where specifically a song started, whether it was non-religious at first and then became religious. And man, don't even get me started on like old composers and their students. God, there's a bunch of songs that are attributed to Johann Sebastian Bach, but it's not actually known if he ever wrote it or not. I mean, some of those songs got famous when he was dead, but did he write it, die, and then it became famous? Or did one of his students want to take a bunch of credit for writing a song? Who knows? Literally nobody. So this sort of thing was pretty common. But getting back to Spice and Wolf, it starts off with this weird kind of tuning thing. And it sounds something like... Only it's in octave, so I guess it would be... And then the song formally starts. My best guess is that because it's in the medieval era, that phrase is kind of kept in, and they do it with Oz, because it's supposed to be kind of tuning. If you've ever been to a symphony orchestra live, you'll usually hear... this note played. It's concert A at 440 hertz. And they will kind of spam this note, and everybody uses that to tune. The reason that is pretty complicated. I probably won't get into it this stream unless we have time left over and you guys are curious. More or less, it's a note of reference for everybody else in the orchestra to kind of tune to, because there are a number of instruments that don't read music correctly for reasons that don't make any sense. But that's the way it is. That's how they're built. It's just it. So here at the start of Tabi no Tochuu, you get this D-flat chord, but it doesn't have a tonality. And I think that's done on purpose. Tonality, by the way, refers to whether something is major or minor. Of course, major has this kind of upbeat feeling where minor doesn't. It's a little spookier. And the reason that has a lot of math, so we won't get into it. But the notes given are... So we don't know if this is major or minor because all of these notes appear in both scales. Again, my guess is that it's kind of a callback to Gregorian chant, which is the first kind of music recorded. Obviously, there were civilizations before the Catholic Church that had music, but whether or not it was discovered around the same time, nobody knows. Or at least I don't. So Gregorian chant was notably never with tonality. It had a lot of perfects, like the perfect fourth, the perfect fifth, and then we also hear the sixth, which is tonal, but it can be major or minor depending on which order you play the song, the notes in. So all of those would fit for a chant. So let's go ahead and hear that. It's kind of weird. You can also hear strings below the voices doing what's called a tremolo, which they play very, very quietly and very, very quickly. I have a similar synth on the keyboard, but I can't really use it right now because I don't know where it is. I have 800 sounds and I'd have to figure it out ahead of time. But anyway, so we have these notes that don't really seem to be related to the song, but again, I'm 900% sure that it helps just create this atmosphere of openness, which is weird because as soon as that's over, the whole orchestra goes nuts. We have this... The very first thing you hear are the woodwinds, the oboes, the clarinets, and some of the flutes go da da ba ba da 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 da, and they repeat that for the whole introduction. Then you have the percussion. It does the first 3 beats normally, and then it does a drum fill for the remaining beats. So let's hear that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1. And then the song starts normally, much in the same way that it did in the TV size. So we'll go ahead and kind of skip through this. So what I was saying earlier, the TV size only starts with the voice at the start of the verse. And I really kind of prefer it that way, as opposed to the full song starting out with both the chant and then the orchestra's introduction, because it really sells the idea of loneliness when a voice just calls out from nowhere and all you have with you is a bass and a piano. But now that we've heard the whole symphony, the voice doesn't really seem to be as alone. It's just kind of taking the spotlight. So, personal opinion, I definitely think the TV size does it better. But of course, there are parts of the full song that you wouldn't otherwise get. Ba, 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 ba. It's crazy to me how freely the vocalist enunciates all of her words. Dea te kara. It has that freedom to it. But if you really focus on the song, the timing is extremely strict. But you wouldn't really get that unless you were actively counting, because the piano is playing chords that aren't timed with the rhythm. Well, they are, but they aren't on the big strong beats. It's ba 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 ba, where the piano seems to play. It plays on the 1 beat, but sometimes it'll play on the 3, the 4, or the 5. And it sort of just moves around in that context. And the guitar plays this da 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 da, which again, for a string instrument, isn't really all that strange. It's just it's a pretty basic strum pattern. And so you wouldn't really get the idea that it's so well organized were it not for the percussion. And then the percussion itself even does its best job to only play half of the beats. So if you listen. Yeah, you can hear that the hi-hat on the drums aren't being played on beats 5 and 6. Again, to kind of give this openness. And then we have the chorus coming up. And now finally we have the bass, which had let me stop this. So during the chorus, you have the bass actually going dun 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 dun, to really establish the rhythm, because now that the strings are here to sustain chords, you no longer need multiple instruments just holding notes, because eventually you're actually going to lose the rhythm. But again, as I described before, the vocals in the chorus have a lot of space in them. Oh my Jupiter. Oh my God. Hold on. I need to complain about something real quick. You guys, I go out of my way to not talk about things like donations, and you go and do it anyway. Stop it. I am the one that simps, okay? You can't just do it the other way around. Oh, that makes me mad. You humans don't make any sense. Okay, let's get back to the music. Where were we?
探しに行こうか風の向こうへ凍てつく夜明けの川
October, you gotta keep that girl in line. She's crazy. She's gonna take all my pizza. Okay, so where we were is, oh yes, when the chorus ends here, the TV size would have ended, but here, of course, the song goes on. The intro repeats with everything involved. There's no contrast or variation here. It's just a straight repetition of what we heard at the beginning. Now here's where it gets different. Where before all of the other instruments cut out for the voice, we keep the guitar. And we have the percussion, and the bass is playing different notes. Because now we have more instruments. Now the strings have returned, as have the other voices. And everything changes here. Here's where we get to the bridge. And man, this is a pretty intense buildup. Let's see if I can play it. You'll hear that phrase repeated over and over. And much like most of the song has done throughout its verses, it builds up with more and more instruments. But what's really interesting is that the percussion, rather than going for a dun, 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 to really like, you know, put those beats on the floor, it opts for an almost militaristic march. And I can't really understand why. I guess it's to keep the rhythm driving. And also, again, to open everything up. Because the vocals, up until the very end of that phrase, are very locked into this. Yeah, the last few notes are sustained and opened, but ba da 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 da. So I assume that because the vocals are also doubling the job of the percussion to keep that rhythm, the actual percussion has moved to a very freestyle-ish. That's not a word. Don't repeat that. It's opted to kind of go into a different way of kind of presenting itself. So we'll back up a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Something to note here is that the female vocals are in harmony with each other. One never moves, which sort of calls back to the very chant-like manner of the very beginning. But it helps ground both the listener and the rest of the orchestra on the tonic note, because the chords are moving in the orchestra beneath all of us. And what's very, very, very clever, I don't know the specific chords, but all of them include this bass note in them. So it might be... or something like that. I don't think that's actually what it is, but it's pretty close. And also, you can sort of hear this very breathy echo on the harmony, the voices in harmony. And I mean, really, the English transliteration for that phrase is the endless miles of hills in the country stretch far to the sea. And what a picture. I mean, describing it that way, you can kind of imagine like maybe it's just me. I always imagine like an oil canvas of, you know, the green and kind of brownish, yellowish fields. The endless miles of hills in the country stretch far to the sea. So it's these mounds of grassland and countryside, and then suddenly it's the deep blue sea. Man. All right, so let's go back to it. And here it's different, and something very important just happened there. That is what we called a delayed resolution. So we'll listen for it again. And before we get into the key change, I finally figured it out. What it is that they have the chord that leads back to the home note that we had been hammering on so much. So we have and this chord makes you want to go back to this one, which the orchestra does, but then they move up from it. They basically cycle through a series of chords that moves the whole song up in its key signature. And again, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but a lot of Disney songs do this as well. In fact, most songs for feature presentations will do this, because it's the ultimate expression of contrast and variation. See, we have spent the whole song in a single key signature, which in itself is a sort of repetition. But now that we've had this bridge to totally break us away from both the verses and the chorus, right when it seems like it's going to lead you back into a familiar place, it's going to play the same chords, the same words, and the same notes in a different key signature. So technically they're all different, but in the context of the new key signature, it is familiar. So everything moves up higher just a little bit, so it's not unreasonable for your brain to be like, hey, I recognize this. This is familiar. But it's still different enough for you to understand that something new has happened. And it's a super easy and genius way to make any song sound like it's way more epic. So we'll go through the whole transition. You can hear it, right? It's a little higher. I'm not sure what the key signature is. Yeah. Okay. So we moved up a whole step. We went from D flat minor to to E flat minor, which is so yeah. And so on. And this higher range kind of gives your brain this thought of, again, this, it's repetition, but it's different. It's been varied upon, and the whole song has now moved into a far more legitimate context because you're now so familiar with how the song sounds that it can kind of express itself in a different way. And higher pitches, I'm not really sure the science behind it, but higher pitches do this thing where they reach you a lot easier, not just mechanically because there's more frequency waves, but also it's just something to do with the female voice reaching up into higher notes that kind of reverberates inside of us on an emotional level. And it often sounds a lot more desperate, which, considering the context of the song and also the places where it plays, is highly fitting. Which I don't want to spoil anything, but it's pretty nuts. So we'll go ahead and listen to the last chorus. Oh boy. Oh god. I'm gonna start tearing up here. Good gracious. Female vocals, Pog, not gonna lie. Yeah, like, no joke. There is something about the female voice that's very specific. Now, male voices have something of their own, but it works in the opposite way. It tends to evoke a feeling of aggression and kind of this, especially in the lower ranges. You know, if you hear a lot of throat singing, kind of in this, like, I actually have an example that I can give here in a bit. But here, the very end of Tabi no Tochuu, they repeat the entire chorus except all the words have been replaced with la, like la 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 la. And this is pretty common in Japanese music in specific, more or less because it hammers everything home, and it's not just something you can sing along to, but it gives a feeling of innocence and kind of, oh, how to say, immaturity, perhaps. Like, you know, when you think of children singing, it's kind of the same idea, but the context that it's used here is really dark, because the whole verse and chorus, or rather the whole chorus, is supposed to give this feeling of freedom, but now in the final chorus, all of the instruments are playing kind of intensely. They're not just loud, but they are hammering the melody home. You will hear the voices, the violins, and the woodwinds all playing the exact same notes, while the percussion goes nuts, absolutely nuts. It plays this whole drum solo, and it kind of just goes all over the place, which gives a feeling of chaos. Like, all the control and the ideas that you thought you had, the freedom, has now devolved into what's basically musical anarchy. It still fits within the time signature and all the beats and such, but we have long since lost this feeling of self, and musical identity, which, again, really, really, just, man, it's crazy. It's crazy. So, hold on. You can hear right now the percussion is behaving, and you can hear the strings doubling against the voices. But watch how it changes. Already things have started to sort of fall apart. And this innocence almost, to me, sounds like a pleading. Like a willful ignorance that the world is crashing down around you. And now everything returns to the way it was in the original, except there are several instruments missing, because the strings are playing something else. And that's it. Yeah, the little chimes don't even finish the little arpeggio that they were doing. It's just, it's powerful, at least to me. I really, really, really get attached to that song, especially for that part, where it starts. There's really no more words. It's again, I like to imagine somebody sitting again in the midst of this field as the wind blows quite harshly, and you can kind of like see their hands, their fingers are interlocking as they press a prayer to their chest, and you know, la 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 la. Oh man, it's so good. It's so good. And again, how the drums just completely ignore the fact that they're playing like a set rhythm, and really improvise there. Oh, oof. It's the good stuff. So that was Tabi no Tochuu, kind of broken down from a more musical perspective. And let me pull up my own BGM and we can kind of talk about some things. Oh, actually, I have about a half hour or so left. So I can go ahead and talk a little bit about the use of the male voice and how it can kind of inspire this feeling of dread, which is not unique to men, but I'll go ahead and do a part from a Requiem, which is a very religiously, it's like emo music for religious people. Agnus Dei, and the words are Agnus Dei qui tollis peccata mundi dona eis requiem, or oh, do I remember the translation? Maybe not. Where was it? I think that's right. Okay. Let me make sure my BGM's off. Okay. Okay. Ikuyo. Agnus Dei, Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, dona eis requiem. Agnus Dei, Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, dona eis requiem. The whole thing is that male voices have a lot of space to reverberate. To sing properly, we do what's called a chest voice, which women have something similar, but it operates differently just due to biology. And what chest voice does is it gives a very round and seemingly darker tone, which works out pretty well. God, Jupiter. Jesus, why are you like this? But it creates this feeling of darkness, I guess. It very much rounds out the lower frequencies, which coincidentally need a lot more air to be pushed out because they're larger, wider. They're just some thick boys is what they are, which is why a lot of lower notes feels like, you know, your whole body is being crushed, where higher notes can, like, you know, pierce your ears and what have you. like I said, it works in a darker tone. I mean, it's church music. It's bound to happen. But yeah, so that was more or less my example of kind of how a lot of voices can give a feeling or emotion by basically just existing. And a lot of composers like to make a lot of use of that, which is why choral music, music for a choir, tends to have the women sing the melody that everybody knows, where the rest of us, well, we don't get that luxury. Though there are notable exceptions. What? It's dark. Kurai ne. So that was my brief diversion of musical knowledge. So now I will hit the BGM and we'll kind of talk about stuff. Actually, one thing that I can do is pull this guy up and grab you and koshite. Then we will get this guy. My room is too small. The studio needs to be expanded when I get the next opportunity to. Oops. There we go. So I was going to do a example of repetition and contrast in more of a modern stance. Some of you are probably familiar with the with Canon in D, Pachelbel's Canon in D. Da 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 da. That song repeats over and over and over. It has the same 8 chords 57 times. I know this because when I played the cello, I had enough time to count because I wasn't doing anything else. However, there is a somewhat modern pop song in the United States by Maroon 5 called Memories, which uses the exact same chords in the exact same way. So it goes, here's to the one that we got. Here's to the wish you were here, but you're not, 'cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones here today. Toast to the ones that we lost on the way, 'cause the drinks bring back all the memories. All the memories bring back you. And it repeats over and over and over again. It's cursed. You get the idea. I can play these 8 chords over and over. And so on. So that's a bad example of, it's a good example of repetition and contrast, but it's a terrible example of variation. Because eventually, once the song repeats over and over and over again, Pachelbel's rant. Yeah, I will get on this rant over and over again. God, I hate this song. I hate it. I'm so triggered. God. Jesus. No, I just, every time that song plays on the radio, the Maroon 5 song, I can't help but ruin it to anybody that doesn't already know that it's the exact same song. And it makes me mad because it's like, you had one job. you know? The only contrast in that song is that the lyrics are slightly different, you know, from one another. But even that, you know, the choruses are the same. So that's just a straight repetition. The verses have very little different from each other. Very little different from each other. And there's like no variation because it's the same thing over and over. I mean, they could have like added a different instrument, you know, they could have like added some percussion. I don't know, literally anything. But nope, it's just when I sing it's special. Actually, let me go look up the lyrics. Hold on. Let's see if I can just do an impromptu performance of the entire song right now. Maroon 5 lyric or Memories lyrics. There we go. Ouch. It's bright. Okay. Let's see here. Let's put this here. Okay. All right. Let's see if I can do this. Okay. Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not, 'cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Hold on. I need to get a different expression because this is cursed. There we go. Okay. All right. For real this time. Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not, 'cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones here today. Toast to the ones that we lost on the way, 'cause the drinks bring back all the memories. And all the memories bring back you. There's a time that I remember. Oh shit. Oops. There's a time that I remember when I did not know the pain, when I believed in forever. Okay, no, I can't do it. Oops. Listen, children, to my story. It was written long ago. Okay, no, I can't do it. The timing is a little weird, but I will, however, play a far better song. Like an aeroplane, you jump and then you pray. The lucky ones remain in the clouds today. If life is just a dream, then which of us is dreaming? And who will wake up screaming? 'Cause if I had to die tonight, I'd rather be with you. Cut the parachute before we die. Baby, don't you cry tonight. Have to bring me down. We'll have some fun before we hit the ground. Love is like a hurricane. You know it's on the way. You think you can be brave underneath the waves. If life is just a stage, then let's put on the best show and let everyone know that if I had to die tonight, I'd rather be with you. Cut the parachute before we die. Baby, don't you cry tonight. You'd have to bring me down. We'll have some fun before we hit the ground. I didn't mess up there. It's your imagination. And if I had to die tonight, I'd rather be with you. Cut parachute before the dive. Baby, don't you cry tonight. You'd have to bring me down. We'll have some fun before we hit the ground. There we go. That was Sean Lennon's Parachute. And if that name sounds familiar, it probably should. Sean Lennon is the son of John Lennon of the Beatles, of whom I'm not actually a huge fan of, but I really like that song. There's also another guitar part, but I can't play them both at the same time. Well, that'll otherwise do it for today. Want to go ahead and check a few things before we head out. Oh, yeah. I told some of you this, but I got a question on my Curious Cat the other day that asked if I was married. To which the answer is yes. I am married to my own voice. It is far too lovely and marvelous, and I could never give it up. So all of you ladies who are in waiting, I'm very sorry. It's a shame. It's a shame, I know. But my voice is up for a some polygamy here. I'm not opposed. We can share. But it is my voice. It will always love me the most. I will always love it the most. It's just the way it is. So Pog. God, you guys are so cringe. I just love to the homie harem. There we go. Yeah, that's right. This is the official homie harem business. God, this CAPTCHA is so obnoxious. Stop it. Get some help. Wait. Yeah, that counts. Polygamy. Polygamy. Oh, God, that's so cringe. Oh, let's see. It seems I have a marshmallow. So one of you asked, "Aye, boy, you real cute. How far them feathers go, though?" To which my response is, "Why don't you come and find out?" Hi. So with that all stated, we'll go ahead and relax for a little bit as I put this on. BGM. Put this guy away. Hope it doesn't fall. There we go. Nice. All right, so we chillin' for at least another 15 minutes or so. I guess we can just open it up to more or less a free chat. Let me go ahead and clean up these things. And yeah, actually, this would be a pretty good time for me to ask, do we like this as a stream series? Like Music Mondays, or should I just release these as videos? Because I kind of want to see if maybe there would be a better thing to possibly stream, like a Minecraft Monday or what have you. I was thinking about doing the same thing for Tabletop Tuesdays, but again, a lot of this is a test to see what works, what doesn't, what we like, what we don't like. So, let me hear it. You like it? All right. That's one vote for like. I didn't end up spending as much time on Tabi no Tochuu as I kind of would have liked, but I kept getting afraid of like copyright, I'm absolutely sure that like as soon as the stream is done, I'm going to look at my YouTube studio and it's going to say that I'm not capable of monetization and it's going to be like blocked in Japan because I used official music. But I know that YouTube has a rule of transformative content underneath Creative Commons license. Oh, what's going on, Nick? You're very passionate. It's fun to listen to people being passionate. That's actually like really touching of you to say. I enjoy hearing Burbo being a music nerd, but I don't know how big of an audience. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really... This sounds like super counterintuitive, but I'm not really trying to get an audience, if that makes sense. Because the whole point of streaming is to more or less do what I want, because it's my stream. And more or less, it's like, if you guys are cool with being along for the ride, then nice. But I guess it's like, if we don't feel like, or if we feel like there's a more entertaining stream to be had, then I guess I'd rather go for that. But I definitely want to do this as a series. It's whether or not I record it as a separate video or not. And do something like that. Hearing you describe a scene with something that tingles. Well, yeah, I mean, I especially imagine for those of you who are capable of drawing, which, man, I'm so jealous. I constantly find myself wishing that I could, like, describe a scene beyond words, especially because you're passionate. Thank you. Domo. October Lights Chand. I'm such a weirdo. But yeah, I really fall in love with a lot of music. There are a ton of anime that I've watched, and I hated the actual series, but the OP was so good. A great example of that, which I'll probably do for another Music Monday, is Magical Girl Spec Ops Asuka. The actual series, terrible. Like, it wasn't even remotely good. But the OP slapped so hard. It's like some hard rock. Which is not only straight up my alley, but it does its job of setting up for the show. I mean, it's supposed to be like an action-packed and kind of moderately gory show, so nuts to butts action, if I can quote Moist Critical for a little bit. How well they executed that in the animation, it's okay, but the song comes right at you, punches you in the face. Ignite is also very good. And Touch Off from Overworld, the OP for Promised Neverland. Oh, the Promised Neverland was also extremely good. Man, it's just, there are so many good songs in anime. But Tabi no Tochuu, definitely one of my favorites because of how it paints itself. And if you ever watch the OP with the animation, I really hope that you take what I said in mind, and then maybe you'll see the whole show in itself in kind of a different light. Big shame that in the second season they had a different OP that I think is vastly inferior. Like, it's good, but it feels like really generic compared to Tabi no Tochuu. But, it's good. The ending theme to Spice and Wolf isn't nearly as evocative of thought. It's very cutesy, but one of these days we'll look at it. Probably along the same time I intend to look at Princess Principal and that show's music, because highly underrated series with an excellent soundtrack. And about now, we're about wrapping to the time that I wanted to. So, there's not really much to read off from here. We did Curious Cat, we did Marshmallow, and we did a bit of a song. So I'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Thanks all of you for coming to this hour-and-a-half stream-ish. I look forward to seeing you all on Tabletop Tuesday, where we will cover the basics of 5th edition. We'll talk about how to play, how to get set up, and more or less try and get everybody in the right mindset to start playing or to start GMing. I'm really, really excited for it. I mean, of everything that I plan to do, not just this week, but streaming in general, I'm like most excited for tabletop gaming because I'm hugely if you think I'm a nerd about music, just wait till I start slapping out D&D. Good stream. Thanks, dude. I didn't ask for your opinion, bucko. Yeah, I mean, I literally did though. All right. So on 3, or well, I guess on 2, we'll do our ending. So, se no otsukagero. Hi, arigato. Alrighty, I will see you guys tomorrow. We'll probably start streaming at 4 p.m. again. And it'll probably be closer to a 2-hour stream, so we'll more or less see what's going on. All right. Bye-bye.